Welcome to David's Life and Observation with your host, David Welch. Um, I have a firm belief that more people would be out there protesting if they could afford to protest, if they could afford to be out there with the people, with people who are quite frankly disenfranchised right now. You're either in two spots for the ones who are protesting. You're either wealthy enough to walk away for a little bit of time to go protest, or you're so poor you have an opportunity with the looting and the rioting to have a come up after we've been told for 3 months, 3.5 months, to stay indoors, and about a quarter of the nation lost their jobs. I'd say a huge swath of people did. It's just that they're gauging the numbers on the number of filed unemployment, which there's probably a couple million workers or more out there who didn't file unemployment or didn't know how or are afraid to because they're not documented. I mean, the ones hit hardest are the ones that, can't continue to work also due to health. Like, COVID was a real enough thing to put people down, and they might have caught other stuff outside of COVID. People were getting pneumonia. People were getting the flu. All the other ailments didn't just go away; they existed too. And then, and then to add insult to injury, the hospital staffing was minimal. The and a lot of people are lauding the healthcare staff, but you had whole hospitals empty as fuck, like empty. Nobody was there. Or you had hospitals that were at kind of operating on a skeleton crew to minimize exposure to themselves, and that's so many people that are not able to go get treatment. So many. Like, how many people had something preventable happen to them that could have been cured quickly if they would have had the regular treatment that they would have naturally had, but they couldn't because uh, the people were being pretty stupid about, oh, you got to maintain 6 feet, you got to do X, Y, and Z, you got to do 22 pull-ups, 32 sit-ups, and a myriad of other things just in order to get treatment. And not only that, like, you still had to have insurance in a lot of cases. Otherwise, hospitals are like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and wheel you out to the curb. And to say that they don't, hospitals have been caught doing it. So just to say that they don't is a lie. So yeah, I mean that's essentially part of what I wanted to say. Another part of what I wanted to say this morning is that we have we still have brutality going on out there. Just because the cops are kind of subdued for the night, not really out there jacking people up, doesn't mean that they don't harbor those feelings still. It's exhausting. Like, I totally understand, especially as a someone who went out there protesting. I was out there for 3 hours and I was exhausted. Imagine the people out there at all hours. Imagine getting arrested. Imagine being the law enforcement officers all kitted up, you know, for nights on end, just to just to move around in that gear for long periods of time. Like, that's especially when you're not used to it. Like, I remember, wearing all that gear and doing annual training. When I was just in the military. Yeah, you're wearing all that gear. It's hot outside, especially in Arizona. 100 degrees out during the day, 108 degrees out during the day. Even in the evening, it tapers off into the 90s. You're like, oh, dear God, we lost 10 degrees. We're so happy. But it's like, that's exhausting to wear all that gear. And I definitely empathize with anybody who's, out there, law enforcement or not. But Here's what I don't. Here's what I don't endorse or empathize or even understand. That law enforcement feels just because somebody in a fake position of power, like a governor, is saying, hey, you got to go violate the Constitution, that you go do it. Like, nah, bitch, it doesn't work that way. Like, no. Now, I would understand, like, address the immediate issues of looting, but if there's people not looting, if there's people who are peacefully protesting, and it's very easy to differentiate between those, because the people that are looting are like in the stores and they're breaking glass and they're, not generally with the populace of the people in the center of the fucking road where they're normally protesting, or near the Capitol, or near somewhere, or a park that they're nowhere near a business, and you're still going to tear gas those people, and you're still going to shoot rubber bullets at those people, and then you have the audacity to shoot rubber bullets into a home. Like, you are so lucky you didn't get shot with real bullets back. Like, I don't care if you thought that was lawful or illegal. It wasn't. That was nowhere near lawful or illegal. People advocated, well, they should have just followed the curfew. Like, no, wait, dude, they were on their property. How about the guy who got pepper sprayed up at his apartment, like looking over the balcony? He got pepper sprayed. That is assault. If I've ever seen assault in my life, that is assault. The cop who did that, you're running out there thinking you got away with that? Bro, you are on film, dumbass. Like, I hope and pray that you get caught for doing that assault. Like, please. Like, you guys are still committing crimes. Like, you think the reaction to police brutality is more police brutality? Get the fuck out of here. This is the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life, where you have law enforcement officers out there who genuinely believe that they're getting away with a whole bunch of shit. Like, dude, your days are numbered. Check what's happening to the Minneapolis Police Department. Don't you think that can happen to you? Like, they're going to disband that whole motherfucker. Like, every officer, just done. Oh, you're recently hired? Sucks. Done. It could definitely happen in Phoenix. Like, dude, the contract. It's a contract between you and the city. Who's the city? We the people. And if you city council members think that you guys are the ones who are actually in charge, wait. Y'all can be recalled. You're all elected officials. Bye, bitch. Your contract's severed. Done. Oh man, I can't wait for the educated people to step in there, like into the city council chambers and the city meetings and things like that, and then they just start yanking you guys. Like, no, you're done. Sorry, you're done. You lost your position. God, you're done. Governor, bro, you're an elected official. Ducey, you're done. Gotta go. Like, every one of you guys can be recalled. Every one of you guys can be like thrown bodily out of office. Y'all realize that, right? Right? Like, you guys can be thrown out of office. Y'all stupid. So the people, and I'm not saying they're not educated, there's very educated people out there protesting, and rightfully so. They should be. Also, the funniest shit I've ever seen. You guys are gunning down with your rubber bullets and your paintball guns or whatever the fuck you got, and you're shooting like press. Like, not just like individual journalists, like an investigative journalist. You're gunning down CNN. You're gunning down ABC. Like, it doesn't matter what credentials. Oh, I got my credential. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life, too. Like, I have my press credential. It's from a reputable institution. You still get shot. Bro, you treat it like everybody else, and you hate it. You hate it. Like, where's my preferential treatment? Bitch, you get no preferential treatment. That's how far we've come. Like, what did you think was going to happen? That, like, oh, they're just going to shoot these citizens that are standing next to me with rubber bullets and not me. You didn't think they were, like, there's literally video of them aiming directly at a news reporter and her photographer, like, aiming at them. Like, what threat were they? Let me ask that officer. Like, what threat were they? What possible threat were they? Oh, was the threat to your career because they had a camera? It's probably what it was. unreal, unreal. And it's only going to get funnier. If you think that right now is just like fucking hilarious, it's going to get more funny. And here's how. There are people out there, not as funny as you and me. They're out there plotting and scheming on what they're going to do to you, law enforcement. They're plotting and scheming on what they're going to do to government officials. You think that government officials getting shot is a one-off? Yo, you must be living in the wrong fucking country. Like, we have so many draconian officials out there. Like, you have people who have all out wars with like the weirdest communities. You have city officials and police officers going hard in the paint against buskers. Yo, you have people going after people for music. You have people going after street performers like hard in the paint because you want to clean up your city. Yo, they're part of that city's culture. Why do you think they're still allowed in Vegas? Still allowed in Los Angeles? Still, I mean, are they kind of curtailed on kind of a wild on how wild they've been? Absolutely. That I understand. When you're sitting there like running up to people and snatching their children out of their hands and then demanding that you get 15, 20 bucks for a picture. Nah, bro. Sorry. Or if you're a performer of any type and people just walk away and they don't put money in your hat, okay, you lost that round, bud, lady. Sorry. You were not entertaining enough to them for them to deposit money in your hat. Work on your craft, and you're doing a good job already. There are people that just simply cannot afford you at the moment. But who's to say they don't go and come back and get used to your performance and then put money in the hat? Like I've done that. There was a guy in San Diego when I was in the Navy. He was awesome. He would play a saxophone and a couple other instruments like all the time. Big black dude. He was amazing. And I didn't always have money. Like I was a really poor. I think at that time I was like E3. Like, I didn't have no money. Barely had money for me. So it wasn't until I was an E4, E5 that I came back and I would drop $100 in this dude's hat because like he was part of the culture of San Diego to me. So it only befitted him, or it only made sense to me to reward him for growing up in that time, So I was thankful and appreciative to see him for the couple of years that I saw him there. Don't know if he's still there, but he was part of my young manhood, so it was great. And that's with anybody you value. Anybody you value, you're going to purchase gear for. And sometimes you can't do it right away. Sometimes you can't purchase the CD. There's been times where I haven't been able to afford a certain CD or downloads of music for a long time. Cat just jumped up there. For a long time, and I had to later back, years later sometimes, and go get it because it was not that it wasn't valuable. It's just that I couldn't afford it. And I had to invest time and money and energy to go get that. And that's the same with books. Like, I'm a bibliophile. If you've never ever seen my Creaticast on here, like, I'm a bibliophile. So there's authors out there that I love to read. I just can't always afford your books. I have to wait till either they're on discount or they're on Kindle, and I'm starting to get like annoyed with Kindle. Like, I don't mind Kindle, but like, come on. Like, if that's the only way I can get an affordable book, where I go to a secondhand store or a third-hand store, and it's like, there's always something damaging to the book or something going on. Anyways, I digress. But my main point is like, it's gonna get, even the optimist, it's gonna get darker before it gets much lighter, and we've seen a tapering down of reaction to citizens from law enforcement, which we saw in Minneapolis. We even saw yesterday I was on Rhode Island's live feed. I was on, cat, get out of there. Cat's pissing me off. Anyway, I was on a couple of live feeds yesterday, and they were just not as crunk as a lot of the previous nights, and that's okay because, like I said, it's exhausting to do it night after night. Even if you get a group of fresh bodies in there, probably they're tired from the 2 days prior that they were there, or the 3 days prior that they were there. So, like sometimes you don't see officers going ham like they have been because they're physically tired. Like these guys are going back to the farm like dead. They do this for 8, 9, 10 hours solid, and they are beat. Like their bodies are destroyed, and they need a couple days to refresh. So, if you think things are just getting light and people are stopping the whole rioting and looting and protesting, no, they're getting their second wind. And there's no reason why the American people have to stop protesting. Like, it's still happening. So you do see some major changes. One, we see the lynching bill go through, and we're working on that. Rand Paul, to be fair to Rand Paul, I think his amendment to that bill was actually perfect, because the language is too vague and words matter, he said, and I agree with that. Now, do I feel for Kamala Harris, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but they gave very passionate speeches. I understand your passion. I understand the need to pass it, with the language, but the current language says that if someone even received a bruise, like, no, I think someone would have to have, suffered, not just like, and I don't want people to suffer. I don't want people to be lynched, period. But if they just simply had their ass whooped, that's not lynching. It's not. But if they've been detained, and they've been they've got physical marks of the struggle, and they've got they don't have to die to be lynched. No, that I don't. There are people that have been lynched and lived. They're not very few and far between, but there are people. So when it comes to the language, I think we do need to be a little bit more specific and articulate it well. But do we need to pass it? Absolutely, we need to pass that bill, and it would have been perfect to pass yesterday. But I do see Rand Paul's point on the language. It needs to be more definitive, and we already have laws on the books that go further and declare any lynching a hate crime already. So I'm not really understanding what the goal of the bill would be, but that's just me. There are people smarter than me out there working on that issue, but I do see their point. I do see Rand Paul's point. When it comes to what cities are doing, cities are sometimes really taking really good action, and going after their police departments like they should. They've taken away money. They've taken, and if you don't think that affects law enforcement, that's what they live for, is money. Could you imagine working your ass off for 6 years, 7 years, 10 years as a chief, like generating money for the city, only for them to hamstring your budget? Yeah, you'd be salty too. And I get the saltiness, but like, the whole point of policing is not to generate revenue. The whole point of policing is not to, beat the shit out of people, which you've heard cops literally say, like, hey, if I'm out, they told a reporter or somebody asking them, like, hey, if I'm out past curfew, what are you going to do? I'm going to beat the shit out of you, is what they said. Like, what? You said that to a citizen? What? That cop should be freaking off the force. He should be arrested immediately. And for departments right now who are not taking a serious look at their officers committing crimes on film, and like, you had a gentleman that was pushed, an elderly gentleman in his 70s, who's a badass, by the way. If you get a chance to look him up, that dude's got a history of being a badass. But he was shoved to the ground by law enforcement, and they step over him. By and large, they ignore him and go after another protester, and it's like, what? Why? And you had some veteran officers, like, attending to him, but not until after, like, a large majority of them stepped over him. Like, what kind of medieval shit are we living in? Like, this isn't a modern society. This is a medieval feudal system where these thugs, these thugs in armor are defending these rich feudal lords who are warring over their share of the lion's share of the money. And you have the peasants like getting the shit into the stick constantly. Like, get out of here with that. You know what's funny is Fight Club is a very good precursor of what's going to happen to the rich. And that mentality was already there like 20 years ago. It just needed a catalyst to make that so. And if you believe that there are people out there not willing to do that or go that far, you have the American people fucked up. You really do. There are some individuals out there who don't have the same mental filters as normal people. And if they find a dragon to slay, they're going to slay that dragon. Rich, poor, white, black, Hispanic, doesn't matter. They're going to fight a demon because that's what they do. They're, good in heart, but if they have a dragon or a demon in front of them, they go hard in the paint until that dragon or demon's dead. And there are also some medieval people out there that are on the other side of the law that you keep fucking with. Now, by and large, the gangsters and there are certain communities out there that have like taken on a different role. You have the protectors, you have the veterans out there protecting businesses because we also believe that that's not right. Where, hey, you're raiding these mom and pop shops just to get some Jordans, like. Dude, come on. You're going to raid a small business. Like, a lot of people who have stuff in their business, the business owner themselves don't have a whole lot of money. They don't have a whole lot of anything. They don't have a whole lot of capital that you think they do just because they have stuff in their store. That stuff has to sell in order for them to, make money, generate revenue. Now, if it's a big box store like Walmart, if you have a big box store like Target who has billions of dollars in profit a year, and why are people going so hard against the banks? Like, you guys can break into mom and pop shops all day, but banks are just untouchable these days. They just can't get into them. They got enough staff out there to defend against you. Really? But you know what would happen is the response team from the law enforcement community would fuck you guys up. That's why you guys don't do it. So you're going to go after people who don't have a security system, who don't have security personnel at all, but they're relying on the fact that hey, they might be the same color as you, so you're not going to do it. But we found that to be untrue, because how many black-owned businesses in every state have been attacked? Or how many minority-owned businesses have been ruthlessly gutted and attacked with, what? They can't file an insurance claim. Insurance not going to cover it. So you guys are destroying your own communities for what? And if you're a shitbag not from that community, yet you're just trying to go get yours, bro, I get being poor. I really understand not having money. Believe me, it's been there. I lived in my car. I've lived in my car with my family. So if anybody's ever experienced anything, it's like, I get you. But, we can dig ourselves out of the hole. We can dig ourselves out of that situation. Or if you're going to go hard in the paint against anybody, why isn't your brain saying, what, let's go after the people that actually have money, not the middle class people, not the small business owners. Why not go after the big shots? Just saying. Why not go after the law enforcement and their family? Those law enforcement officers generally make over 6 figures a year. Go after them. Those guys make 6 figures. You got people who are rich, kind of, sitting up in their burb house just laughing at you. How about you go after them? Go hard in the paint against them. See how you do. Go after their money. Go after their ducats. Go after their cars. Go after their property. You got athletes and actors who, some of which are supporting you, but some of them don't give a shit about you. Some of them don't care. Some of them don't give a hot fucking piss about who you are, what you're about. They don't. But you're going to idolize them? The fuck out of here. Anyways, have a great day. It's been a interesting just kind of unraveling of the events. If you do see something, don't just sit there and film it. Be participatory. If you see someone being choked out by law enforcement, if the worst thing that happens to you is that you get arrested for saving that person's life, then that's the worst that happens to you. I get it. You got bills to pay, you got children to feed, you just like, dude, not my business, mind your own business. But if you could save that person's life, if that the person filming, and I don't blame the person filming, if somebody was in the area and they saw George Floyd getting choked out by law enforcement, and you're on the sidelines begging and pleading for them to get off his neck, and you don't react, or at least take the arrest, like, I'm sorry. I see them choking out law enforcement or choking out somebody, especially if it's somebody I know. If they're sitting there on his neck and he's like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, you're shutting down, his body, and you've got 3 law enforcement officers, and then you got a 4th law enforcement officer, keeping a barrier between everybody and the murder that's happening. Like, not only should they be in jail, but they should absolutely be getting hundreds of years of time. Or just straight death row. That'd be real quick, put them on death row, and let's do the electric chair. Let's do lethal injection, but let's fuck up that cocktail to make them suffer the entire time, because that's what needs to happen. Like, bring back public hanging for them. I don't see what's wrong with that. Hang them. Shoot them, firing squad. And just do it with small rounds. Do it with 22. They'll die eventually. I don't believe that they should be free from suffering. Absolutely not. Like, their whole world has ended, and rightfully so. But you got more officers out there like that. You really do. You have officers out there who will literally tell you they live for the conflict. They live for the action. They live for kicking in doors. They live for, beating the shit out of people. Like, if that is what they're articulating verbally, and they're articulating that on social media, and they're articulating that to each other in the locker room, then every one of those officers, and all the good officers hearing that and not reporting it and not doing anything about it, then you fall into the category of bad officer. So for those out there who keep that whole tired line of, that's only a few bad apples, like, no, it doesn't work that way, you dumbass. It can't be a few bad apples. And the saying goes, a few bad apples spoils the barrel, which is true. So you got these few bad apples, but you got the supposedly good apples not doing shit about it. Like, just because they're going to be at risk of losing their job, how many officers have we seen do that already and lose their job? And then, it's okay. It's the end of a profession for you, not the end of your life. Some people have a lot invested. You have your degrees invested in it. You have your 14, 15, 16 years invested in it. All you're trying to do is get to retirement. I get it. I really do. But what's worth it? Is your moral character worth it more than, eventually somebody losing their life because you chose to not act? Good question. And then you're sitting there with, there's a good representation. I can't remember the film, but there's a law enforcement officer who had just one, he was just trying to get his. He was just trying to, hey, you got a career of being a corrupt motherfucker, and they're asking you for one more lick, like, dude, you can't live with yourself at that point. You're miserable. You hate life. There's so many officers out there that hate what they do, but they have no other skill set. They have nothing else going for them. And they want that camaraderie of the military. They want that hoorah of the military that they're not getting. So they're going hard in the paint to try and relive that, but they're not getting that from the mindless drones of law enforcement, because they realize they stepped into a community of fucking morons who have nothing else to offer society. Nothing else to offer society. But they're bilking society for millions a year for everything under the sun. They get treated way too well, in my opinion. If you're a law enforcement officer in a city, you should be making like $30K, $40K. That's it. That's all you should be making. For you to be making any more than that's a crime on the American people and the people of that community. I'm sorry, but like your job's really way down there on the fucking threat meter. Like, what, you get 100 officers die a year? Where you guys kill thousands of people a year, and probably not all, they're probably not keeping accurate numbers of the numbers of people that they kill. Or the number of lives ruined a year is just monumentally more than the people they kill. So they kill roughly 1,500, 2,000 people a year, but they affect and ruin probably has to be millions of lives a year that they ruin based on their nonsense, based on them going aggro, based on them doing dirt. And then the people that are genuinely doing dirt, yeah, they're ruining their own lives, but they're being affected by a system that is wholly against them, especially during the pandemic era. Like, it's hard already to be a non ex-con or a non-felon and get a job and work and make money. But just imagine now you got even more shit against you, being an ex-con, being a felon, being at a time where people aren't getting that much work. You're fucked. So the rate of recidivism, I would love to see the number and the data on that. The rate of recidivism during this time period is probably quantifiably and exponentially more than we've ever seen it. So I would love to see those numbers. We'll see. Anyways, I had to get off for it before I rant too much longer. Thank you for tuning in to Dave's Life and Observation. Have a great day.